All right. As we proceed to give you what you might need, this is episode 9 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. And
Ones.
this is actually take 2 of a multi part series that we had because we were running through all the different technology possibilities of what to expect for future episodes of the Lyrical Ones podcast. So, joining me this lovely evening is Alex. Alex,
Yes, yes, y'all. It don't stop.
how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's another great week. A lot of craziness going on in the business world, in the education world, uh, in American government, and in the housing and financial world with somebody's boy. He's I won't call him your boy. Um, he's somebody's people. Um, just talking about housing, and I don't even want to talk about current events like that, man.
I mean, I feel you. It's hyper relevant. I think I know what you're talking about. I seen a tweet from this sir, this
It's
person,
elected official, you
elected
know, el- elected.
official. And it definitely it touched me in the wrong way, in every way that you could take that, because it was the most backhanded, derogatory, disrespectful thing you could say about people in general. Like, my goodness, this is the reality we living in. So I feel you.
And it's still just that hate mongering, you know, that's going on and emboldening a lot of people who already got hate in their heart. And for me, it's hard to see it as something new in America, because like I feel like people have been bold before. People who hate people have been bold before. This is not the like the most prevalent time of hate crimes in America. Um, I feel we've had presidents say crazy, hateful things in the past as well. We've had presidents who've been slave owners, so it's not the craziest thing, but we are in a place where time and place where things spread fast, um, and you know we just information is contagious, right? Misinformation is contagious, right? Fear, hope, hate, right? These emotions that are being passed around, you know gets around quick. And when people are just like throwing half ideas out there, it's really difficult for people to form opinions that they are passionate about, that they are like fully informed and educated about. And this culture of engagement and disengagement, just reminds me that one, we're in a place we haven't been in before in terms of interaction and engagement, um, but a lot is still the same as changes continue to happen. And it's very interesting to me because changes are happening. And I feel the most hopeful that America could be what it was meant to be, a diverse country of misfits. Um, at least, I don't know. I really like the idea that America is North, Central, and South, um, and the United States could be, more united with the rest of America, rest of the Americas, at some point, at some day, um, as people still move and shift around and relocate, um, and and re-enter into gentrified areas, come back into communities, and we build, financial stability, from the ground up in homes, and It's like reinvent what middle class means, reinvent what low income means, and just continue to change things, and just like in like the comparison of self to others, and focus on who we are as people, who we are as individuals, who we were, our personal histories and our communal histories. Um, like everybody, like it's hard to talk about history now when so much is the same, and it's really important, I think, to focus on where we're going and where how we're going to get there. What does that look like? All these different things that need to happen in terms of not the education system, but the way that we educate each other and ourselves, um, without relying on the system to educate us. Because if you go through any institution, an educational institution, and you complete courses and you graduate, doesn't mean you know what to do once you get a job when it comes to like taking care of your money. Doesn't mean that you're gonna be financially literate enough to look after yourself, or look after a family. You get a good job and you don't know how to protect what you make. uh you get folks who make a like, if Patrick Mahomes, who just got awarded a $500 million contract. I was talking about it with my clients one of my clients the other day. Um, they're saying how 11, no, say the difference between a million and a billion, right? Is a million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years, right? So when you talk about millionaires and billionaires, um, it's things that are kind of out of control. Um, but at the same time, right? Like it is crazy, but also like that's measured in 365, day units. Um, so if days were longer, it would be less years. So there's that, but it's no, it's meant to make it sound negative, toward billionaires, which this is fine because they're hoarding and they don't care if you compare them to anybody anyway. Um, but it's wild, just the drip that is $1 million in the bucket of $1 billion. Um, and so it's very interesting. But Patrick Mahomes, he got awarded a $500 million contract, potentially more. And if he doesn't know how to handle his money, um, he's he's it's so many stories that you could write about uh, trauma and racism, and like MC Hammer, out of Oakland, was the first hip hop artist to be a millionaire, and vacated all that money, you know in multiple and numerous ways, um, almost it seems like as many ways as he possibly could. And because even we see that even with the money, it can't buy your safety from the police. um, but through education, through like financial literacy, you can at least be in areas where there are less police. um, and you can also be in a position to where you pool money together to fund programs, education programs, to teach your community about how to vote, how to vote for your district, vote for your neighborhood, show up to meetings there are when there are meetings about a new business coming into your community, like knowing that they have them first of all before things get approved. Like the community has an opportunity to say, we don't want this here. We don't want this moving in. We don't want this, at the base of our apartment building or whatever. When there's retail spaces that show up, and like knowing where we come from is a big part of knowing where we're going. But if you're launching a rocket, you're going up. Um, and as a community, knowing what it means to go up, takes dialogue, takes understanding, so that you can have a direction, and not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And I think we're closer to that now, I think, than we have been, in a long time. Not just as people of color, um, but people of color and their allies. Because at any point, if you was fighting in the '60s, you could take a break. When all your color, people, your friends of color die, you could take a break and go be a millionaire if you want to be. You could just take a break. If you white, you could just chill out and say, nah, I'm gonna stop posting about Black Lives Matter. I'm done with that. What they call it, quote unquote woke fatigue. Um, it's like, yeah, I'm tired of being woke. I'm gonna take this nap. And like, no matter how, whether people talk about it or not, um, it's people doing that. And they was doing it in the '70s, and they was doing that in the '60s. It's like, if you was attached to a figure to be your face of revolution, and that person was assassinated, whether it was JFK or Malcolm X, or MLK, um, like 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 people, I guess, I don't know, it's wild that just people don't know that, even if somebody's shot and they in the hospital, somebody will still come and smother them with a pillow, suffocate them, in a hospital bed, um, just to keep um, a mentality alive, just to keep hate thriving. And I think we have to be, straight serious about how dangerous hate is, right now. Um, because like when we talk about, later on in the show, when we talk about wellness, um, and maintenance, like acknowledging the threats is a big part of that. Don't you think?
No, you right. I mean, you definitely we diving in, as you can see. Episode 9 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. We, how we doing. We jumping on in. We going in the deep end, and I feel the same way. Like, I see situations and scenarios through multiple dimensions. I don't see it as what it is on the surface level. I see it for what it is in that moment, and then everything that it possibly could be. And so, when you're talking about all these different things, it highlights a lot around the dynamic experience of awareness when your life is on the line, right? Like I remember working in a place, and they were like, is it a real threat or a perceived threat? And to me, when you a person of color, every threat is a real threat. You can't take no chances. If somebody's saying they gonna kill you, the chances are highly likely that there may be the possibility that they could kill you. Like, it's not a perceived threat, it's literally a threat. So you're living in a constant threat of survival, right? Because you driving down the street, you see the police, you're reminded of either your own previous interactions that were negative, someone else's interactions that were negative, or what's being reinforced through social media that you get to just access at any given moment in a multitude of ways. And so, and people like to throw around the data and the data around, like, oh, well, white people are killed more by police. Well, white people make up more people per capita in general in the populace. So that makes sense. But when you break it down and you look at the ratio between how many white people are alive versus how many get killed, Well, it's not the same as when you're black, because when you're black, the number is so much more higher when it comes to the rest of your black population. And that's the thing, that like it's wrong either way, right? We're not trying to denounce or dismiss or minimize. We're trying to look at it for what it is. If we were to look at it on a frequency base, there is a higher frequency when it comes to, in respect to the population that exists, of murders and death that is happening to black people. It's been that way traditionally since black people have come out here in a in a massive number, right? So when you're talking about leaders, you're talking about being woke. For me, I was raised to be an insomniac. You don't get no more woke than this, right? Sleep is important, and this all intertwines, right? Like it's multitudes of metaphors, but it's so true when it comes to needing sleep. And when it comes to being a person of color, especially being black, you don't get no sleep. Imagine the stress, imagine the irrational behavior, imagine all of the despair and the distraughtness of your thought process and how you're going to behave and how you're going to act. And then you will then try to, like, it's funny, you get to pick and choose when we're equals, right? When we do something wrong, we're equals, right? When we do something right, we held to a lower degree, right? If we mess up, oh no, the punishment might not be the same, right? But we're going to hold you to the same measure. Nope, you're wrong, right? We're just going to say you're wrong. Now, the outcome of that wrongness will manifest itself maybe in a unfortunate, imbalanced, or unfair way, but you will admit we're wrong. But when we're right, well, there's so many other factors. Do you have money? Do you have merit? What color are you? What shade of black are you? Right? How you gonna show up? And like that brings us into, one of the topics of discussion is, this one is about history and understanding where you come from. And so for me, the connection in that is, you know being black, and why I identify as black, and why I say black, is because, and just to kind of touch on it, there was a speech by Tupac that I always loved when I was young, and he was like, "If you African American, and you want to act all, high and mighty," and he's like going in about what does it mean to show up as an African American in the black community, right? And like the difference, the multitude of like the different names and terminology, right? But I'm gonna focus on the two: African American and black. And to me, there is a difference, right? And the difference is Africa is a continent. I mean, when I talk about culture, when I talk about history and legacy, I always focus on these three categories. I focus on language, I focus on your country of origin, and then I focus on your religion, right? And so when you look at the language I speak English, which is by way of England. When I talk about the country that I identify with or come from, I come from the United States. I don't know if it's Senegal, I don't know if it's Ghana, I don't know if it's West Africa, what part of West Africa that my family originates from, right? So to me, when I think of religion, Christianity is the dominant religion within the United States. And a lot of my family either lean towards the Baptist church or, Catholicism and Catholic church. So to me, it's like, okay, when I'm looking at this historical, right, account of where I come from and what I know and who I am, there's a lot I can pull from, but nothing to me says, oh yeah, my auntie who comes from Senegal, who lives in this neighborhood, who's lived there for the past 500, 600 years, right? Like I'm not afforded that ability to talk about that history. And people can dismiss it and minimize it if they want to, but it plays in a great significance when it comes to your self-esteem and your pride, to know how far you can go back and trace your family roots, right? Because especially when you grow up in a society where, you know, majority of what you're going to take in, whether it's the lessons at school or what you see on television or what you're going to watch in a movie, it's going to be dictated as one way, one type of person, right? It's going to show up and it's going to look like the country you identify with doesn't really have a place for you. And that plays into how you show up in school. That plays into how you show up at work. That plays into how you're going to feel about yourself, whether you're aware of it or not. Because, to me, it's always like, especially now, when I hear Killer Mike talk about coming from Georgia, coming from Atlanta, and what it means to grow up in an all black school and to come from a community where it's predominantly black, that's way different than my upbringing and where I come from. I was fortunate to go to the school that I went to where it was diverse, but I can't say it was predominantly black, right? I can't say that. It was, but as diverse as it was and as rare as it was to see white people, it still wasn't a predominantly one way or the other thing. And the thing is that people might, it's hard for people to conceptualize because the people who, we're not only talking to our own community, we're talking to the many variety of people, and the many variety of people will have a hard time reconciling what I'm saying, to really process like, man, here he go, he talking about the struggle of being black. I mean, it's a constant struggle, so it's going to be a constant message. And so when I think of my history and I think of, knowing that, like, okay, my father's from El Salvador, and the history that I know there is very traumatic and tumultuous because of the Civil War, because of, the Spanish coming in and taking over, and how many people reflect the Eurocentric look versus the native look and speaking the indigenous language. I mean, the predominant language in Central America and going through Mexico is a foreign tongue, right? England, English, Spain, Spanish. And so to then go into the Civil War, which the United States had a big hand in, and now it still exists in a multitude of ways to this day, it's one of those things that people don't really understand the scope of what the history you're looking at kind of gives you. The history I'm looking at is my father, who was impacted by the Civil War and having to leave his family to come to a country that he had no idea what to do, but just for his own survival. Whereas my mother comes from Texas, and her uncles and her mom was picking cotton, and that was the reality of what they did. They lived on a farm, right? So it's like, to me, the history is limited. I can't go back to like a dynasty or a kingdom or a time period that predates this country. It's all surrounded by this country. So, to me, when I'm thinking about history, that's where I'm coming from. So, Alex, what's your relationship to history, legacy, and your own identity?
Yeah, I think you touched on some really, I think, remarkable aspects to think about the journey of being multi-ethnic, um, where your your experience is more complex. I think when you even just take growing up where you grew up, and coming around, being around different cultures, is it's important and it's valuable. And like I said, it's even though it's not the same as growing up in a predominantly you know one ethnicity or the other, um, culture, there's value either way. You can the pride in being diverse. You know the pride in being in a community that's diverse, and or the pride in being in a community that all looks the same. You know are on two sides of the same sword, and I think um, both sides cut and can harm people. With the closed mindedness of you know being tolerant, or the closed mindedness, of being xenocentric, um, you know, or being proud of your heritage. It can cut and alienate people the same way. And I think I'm really proud to be black from anywhere. Um, I think black from anywhere is a culture. Um, it wasn't all. I think it was always that. I think it wasn't always that. And so I think now, because of the internet, because of the connectivity that we have, you know, being black from anywhere is a thing. Um, the Afro-Americanos, with a lot of pride, where, you know, even some folks who are, because they define themselves as Afro-Americano, don't qualify for rights because they're not included in the Mexican Constitution. Um, but they still choose like 1.2 something people still identify as Afro-Americano and like of African descent living in Mexico. Um, and like it's like for me, it's just really cool to like be black in America and welcome other black people from everywhere else, and we intersect at culture and experience within America. Um, and like that to me is something that I'm proud of, especially like when you talk about legacy. It helps me see where we could go, and reminding myself and others that United States of America is a member of the Americas, and there's a sense you put a wall between America and America. um, because they're Americans too. Um, they are Mexican American, Canadian American, you know, even if they don't ever never touch foot in the United States. Um, and I think, that pride, you know, is possible when we as communities are doing things to be proud of, um, when we are doing things to look after each other, when people stop recording things and start intervening. Um, like we don't need any more suffrage videos, um, to get our rights. Um, we don't have to. We can now. We're now in a space of leaving legacy for the next generation, where we can have laws changed, and we can vote the people who care about us into power, um, and into influence. And again, we need to use the connectivity that we have for better than voyeurism, for better than entertainment. Um, it's cool to see. Like today, I was on a call earlier today where somebody who's in Orlando in the bubble was on the call with people from different countries, all on the call at the same time, and listening to someone, a black woman from Oakland speak, you know, um, and then I was on a call after that, with a brother who grew up also in Oakland, um, in East Oakland, from the Murder Dubs, and um, just another, person who decided to join a community call today, you know, and share and exchange with people who were not like them, and people were there to listen. Um, and it wasn't about the people from Oakland. It was the fact that there was an exchange happening, and there was not a didn't have to be a preconception about what they were going to say because of where they were from, or who they were, or how they lived their life, or what they did. That didn't matter as much as what they wanted to share with the community. Um, and I hope we all get to a space, like you said, if something happens to one black person, I feel like it's happening to me, because it could happen to me, because of why it's happening. Um, it's like, okay, I'm not in elementary school, right? And my little cousins don't necessarily go to an elementary school, that's all white, or that's predominantly white. And that means it probably won't be no folks out there trying to shoot up the school like that. Um, that's just the way America, kind of ticks. And so um, there might be shootings on their way home or when they get home, right? And so, but that has nothing to do with systematic, oppression, right? That has to do with neglect, privilege, and mental health services for folks who people know are troublemakers, people who know have problems, who need help, and have continually done things to put people in harm's way or put themselves in harm's way, and not getting the services they need, and it's and the reason why they don't get them is because boys will be boys, or he's just needs some more attention, or his parents are going through separation right now, and like it's really just wild that because of that, people have to bury their children, um, across multiple schools. People, you know, have to bury their children, who have to bury their cousins and aunts who were just worshiping in a church, who were just praising in a church, who were just praying in a church, or who were at a club in Orlando, um, or in the movies in Colorado, um, or at a concert in Vegas. Like the prevalence of violence can stop, and it's not just about people seeing each other as community. um, it's the people who have a voice joining those who don't, and them all working toward equity, um, not getting everybody the same thing, but make sure everybody gets what they need. um, and we just got a long way to go. Like when we talk about maintenance and self-care, it's like if you work too much, you need maintenance. If you work too little, you need maintenance. Like if you drive the car a lot, you got to get it tuned up. If you don't drive it enough, you got to get it tuned up. um, if you same thing with an elevator, right? You ride the elevator a lot, elevator's got to get worked on. You don't use the elevator, it might not work when you want it to. um, Similarly to the body, to the mind, to the spirit, to your heart, if you're not doing what's necessary for its function, um, it will function less or not at all. Um, like they say, it's no symptoms for a bad heart. Um, Sometimes folks just start having strokes, um, or somebody just has one brain aneurysm, and that's enough for them to not survive. They have one heart attack, there's no warning for that. Um, and it's not about size, and it correlated to size. And I think part of that correlation again is just pushing a figure or a shape on a people to sell things. um, because it's a whole lot of heavy people that have healthier hearts than skinny people. Um, and that's wild too, because it's not what people imagine, when it comes to health, but like they're not necessarily imagining it, right? It's like that image is being pushed on them, like this is what it means to be at optimum health. Abs means you're healthy. No, they don't. um, it's just, where your fat cells are, and where they are not. Um, because you can have all the plaque in your heart and have abs, and and be one chicken sandwich or one you know heartburn inducing tomato soup away from you know being in the hospital for longer than you want to be. And like it's really important to just like learn about your body by listening to it. Um, I think it's so important to love through listening, um, to learn through listening, and to uh, to love people through learning about them, um, allowing them to teach us about uh, others' journeys is so important when it comes to justice. Um, think about people who are surviving trauma. Listening to them is loving them. Believing them is loving them. Um, and it's acknowledging that what was taken from them. Uh, it's acknowledging the injustice in their life and where, so you can then say, oh well, what is what does the justice look like, you know, in their life? Well, we can't know until we know where the injustice is. Um, so for people who want to say there's, you know, point out there's black on black crime or reverse racism, um, like if you're not acknowledging, you say all lives matter, right? If you're not acknowledging where the injustice is, you are not a part of the solution because you can't see where justice needs to be served. You can't see where justice needs to happen. Um, if you're not acknowledging where the injustice is and acknowledging what has been taken away from, you know, boys, girls, women, children, and you know, it's just wild. It's like um, we have a long way to go. But I think we can get there together, and it starts with the maintenance that you do on the self. Um, like sleep cycles is just about repair. Um, it's like deep sleep, REM sleep, shallow sleep. It's just a sleep cycle. It's just about repair. It's your brain repairing your body. It's your brain repairing itself. Um, everything that you, like, if you pay attention to your body enough, you'll notice that it's repairing all the time. That's why I get new hair, get new skin, get new nails, get new bone, get new eyelashes, you get new facial hair, you get new stuff all the time in your body. Just the fact that you can go to sleep and wake up and feel rested and have more energy, that's your body repairing itself. And just have to take it as a symbol that it's okay to be stressed if you have a healthy response to stress. It's also okay to be stressed if you have an unhealthy response to stress, but it also means you have to work to find a healthy response to it, um, because that unhealthy response is going to augment how you interact with people. Um, the unhealthy response is going to augment how you look after yourself, uh, and learning and acknowledging that our our responses to stress are negative, or positive, really I think determines, you know, whether we're healthy or not. I think healthy is not a state, it's a discipline. Healthy is about your choices. Discipline being yes or no at any given point. It's like when you get to an intersection, you have, you know, these choices to make, and discipline is, you know, not where you should go, but deciding, you know, instead of the wind taking you, or letting someone else's opinion sway you, um, or letting someone else navigate for you when they don't have their best interest at heart. And that's a lack of discipline. Um, you know, and you know, giving in to peer pressure, you know, is a lack of discipline. Even if that peer pressure is saying, "Oh, you should go do your homework and you know follow what your teachers say." Like, if you can't make up your mind for yourself, that's not discipline. That's not teaching discipline. If you're not teaching kids to choose, if you're not teaching kids to choose for themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, you did bring up something that definitely had me chomping at the bit, especially when you got to systemic oppression and the idea of like the difference in communities and cultures that exist. Because this is the thing. Like I know I'm very critical. I'm hypercritical. I think very critically. Um, and the thing is, when it comes down to like the black experience and the African diaspora, like to me, when I say the whole thing about culture, like black culture is the baby culture of the world. Like black culture is the newest, freshest, youngest. Like black culture is what America is to the rest of the world. But black culture to me has so much more significance because of its ability to transcend all cultures and permeate in so many different ways. You call it appropriation, you can call it racist, you can call it whatever you want to. But to me, when I look and see people trying so hard to emulate what they see, that's them trying to adopt that culture and find a way to get their culture right. Like when I was young and I was doing martial arts and watching Van Damme and Ninja Turtles and Bruce Lee, you know, as much as someone could say I'm appropriating a certain type of culture, right? I identify with it, right? I identify with the story. I identify with all these different narratives. Like when Bruce Lee was in these situations where he was dealing with racism in the movies, I felt that, right? When Van Damme has to be the one to struggle in the beginning to then overcome the odds, I felt that, right? To see the Ninja Turtles and the multitude of, youthfulness and the variety of characteristics and personalities and be treated as other, right? To be treated as different than everybody else. I felt that. And to have the ability to fight through and overcome the odds, I have no choice but to identify with it, right? And I'm saying all that to say that when I think about the the black culture, black history in America, it is one of the ones that is constantly attacked. It's the one where it's constantly held to a measure of other and different. And there's so much variety, so much difference, such a multitude. And it's so raw. It's so dope. It's so incredible. It's so amazing. It's so breathtaking. It's so beautiful. And the thing is, it's also the youngest. It's the newest, right? We came out here as slaves. We were the most absolute other. We were just an accessory. We were treated as animals. To then everything we do has now been redefined or try to been capitalized off of, or try to been processed and manufactured in some capacity where you can't escape black culture, right? When Taylor Swift went from country singer to pop singer, she went not only from pop singer, but she started having a little bit more beat in her songs. You listen to them beats, them could easily duplicate as a trap beat. And it's like, there's no mistaking that, right? You need the black validation. You need that black vote. You need it. Because why? It's influential. It's massively influential, right? Like, I hate to say this in this way, but one of the most popular video games of all time was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Of all time, right? There was a lot
I
of
knew you was gonna say it.
there's a lot of controversy attached to it, but it's so real. You can't escape the influence and power of black culture in so many different capacities. And people try to deny it. Your own people will try and deny it, right? And the thing is that to me, when I look at history and look at legacy, right, I think of some of the family that I know where they try to make that distinction because of their status, their education, and their wealth, that they're not like everybody else, right? And that takes me back to that Tupac quote about being African American, right? Because you you won't be so willing to accept this other side of yourself, this other part of your identity that like just saying it, like when we talk about the school shootings, right? The shootings is different depending on what culture you come from. One's going to be very targeted and one's going to be for anybody and everybody around you, right? We both are under the gun, as they say, but the impact is going to land differently, right? When I think of Black Lives Matter, I'm not just thinking about the police. I'm also thinking about the systemic oppression and measures that have been placed on the black community, where black people are forced to fight each other, where they're forced to be in this death battle for any number of reasons. This to me isn't by pure free will and choice. This is largely by design, right? This is something that has been figured out in a multitude of ways by creating division and like, I quote Nipsey, I quote my Nipsey, right? Like I'm telling you right now, I am an activated person. You witnessing the transformation as I'm experiencing it, right? Me prior to this, I've always loved music. I've always done music, but I haven't shown up in the way that I'm showing up now. Me at work, I haven't shown up in this capacity in who knows how long because I always felt like the world wasn't ready for what I got to say. Now I'm seeing people starting to say what I'm saying, so I got to say my piece. So Nipsey has said that when you are when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking of your morality. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to live, right? When you can't eat and you can't get, right? You always like, well, who got it so I can get it, right? Even goes to the Tupac quote, right? I'm gonna knock on the door and be like, hey, we hungry, let me in. You don't let me in. All right, I'm busting the door down and I'm finna take everything you got. And so when you think about survival, and most people don't really understand what survival really means because they have either a safeguard, a safety net, they get to be complacent, they get to know that there's all these, things that kind of help them with their survival. They don't experience what it means to lose yourself, right? Because you start to lose,
Mm.
you start to adapt and adopt different beliefs, different actions, and different processes. And so
Yeah.
at people who live in communities where it's like, depending on where you come from, it's ugly to go somewhere else. That's out of that systemic approach to saying, we're going to make sure you don't have enough. So when you see somebody who got just a little bit more than you, you're going to be quick to rip them apart. And, no place is even more crazy when it comes to that philosophy and mindset than our lovely San Francisco. Because in the reality, this is the thing. When you look at how, you know, we exist, right? People will often look at it as, oh, we're the liberal city, we're progressive in our nature and how we do things. And it's like, yeah, that's to some degree. That isn't the reality on a constant, right? I've worked in I've worked in the community space as service to the community since for over 15 years. And one of the most common threads I've heard is why solve the problem when you can prolong the problem and get paid for it, right? If you gush, let me put a band-aid on it, right? Because you don't feel good, I put the band-aid on it, even though you still bleeding out. And so to me, when I think of history and I think of legacy, that's the thing that's been duplicated and replicated across the board, no matter where you live, right? They always tell you, oh, we're going to do this. But when you look at it and you start to look at the fine print or you see how they actually carry it out, it's a mess. And that's where we are right now. We have people who are thriving. We have people who are growing. We have people who are more educated than they ever been. But now we also have people who they they're they're lost. They don't really understand where they're going. They know they want to go somewhere, but they don't understand how much of what we're doing is a repetition of the past and how much of that is really hurting us. Because we have to be mindful that like doing the same motion over and over again can induce an injury, right? We have to find new ways of movement. We have to find innovative approaches to getting what it is we want. Because to me, when I look at history and I look at what we went through and I look at how things repeat itself, right? Like it's not lost on me because I've always been in this mindset of I'm trying to bring about change. If I want something different, I got to do something different. I can't have the same expectations and then do the same things and keep getting the same results and believe it's gonna change. It's gonna be different this time. Nah. If you with that same lame dude or that same crazy girl and you already went through that life-changing come to Jesus conversation after the fifth time, well, guess what? The expectation and the history will dictate that the sixth time will be the same thing. You have to make a choice, right? Because you keep dealing with family members who put you in the same position over and over again, where they take away from you rather than give you that nourishment, love, and compassion and reciprocate your energy. Some point you got to ask yourself, how many times can you keep going through it saying, it'll change? without accepting that, you know what, this is who they are and I got to accept them for who they are. I have to make the necessary changes within myself. The world don't change unless you change you first, right? Perception is reality. We talking about someone who told me in one of my jobs, perceived threat. Perceived threat? When you black, everything's a threat to your life. Everything is a threat. There is no perceived threat. When I go outside and I get in a car and the police pull up behind me, I have my previous history of actions, I have other people's experiences, and then I have the internet to reinforce what it is that I know. There's a chance that this could turn into my life ending, my freedom being taken away, or just a negative, draining, toxic situation. And I think that, to me, when I look at my history and I think about, like the story my uncle said, he was going to drive from San Francisco back to Texas with his brother. And this is when they were adults. They had got day jobs, good money, getting paid. And they drove through and they got to Texas and they stopped at the diner and they was like, sat down, got these menus, they reading them. And the first thing out of the server's mouth was, "We don't serve y'all." And my uncle at the time said, "Well, I didn't want no y'all, but I'll take a cheeseburger." And my other uncle was like, "Negro, you gonna get us killed. We got to go." Right? So this simple moment, as funny as it was to me to hear his witty and his sharp comeback, it's a reminder that that happened then, right? And now we live in an era where we are witnessing, we are watching people who, the injustices, right? Like you said, it's a voyeuristic way of things happening, right? Where we're just constantly seeing it, but it's still the same injustice, right? It's just now we can't escape it because we all at home, right? Like, you look at the Dave Chappelle comedy and how he said the thing that was really saving people from having to experience and witness this man being killed by the police was Kobe Bryant playing his final game, right? It's this duality in the black experience, right? As much as we have this pain, we also find ways to increase our joy. And I think that's paramount when it comes to our history, right? When Martin Luther King died, James Brown said, "I'm gonna do this concert because I need my people to be able to vent. I need my people to be together and not get caught up in the madness." And a lot of people credit James Brown for doing that show, for saving a lot of black people that night from doing something crazy, from putting themselves in harm's way. So that connects to wellness, that connects to maintenance, sustainability, right? Because me, hyper important, I come from a family, as I've said many times, where cancer, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, all these different things have taken so many of my loved ones, which has made me realize, okay, I need to exercise. I need to eat and be thoughtful of what I'm eating, right? I need to be very thoughtful of what I'm putting in my body, because I know that as much as I love me some Jack in the Box, as much as I love me some Taco Bell, as much as I love me some fried chicken, the thing is, right, that consistency and constantness of eating that stuff is poison, right? It is now destroying me, right? I remember the last time I had McDonald's. No, the bathroom did not love me, and I did not love the bathroom. But now, right, me in this form, having eaten salads and eating fruit and learning all the different capacities, it was like, what's my favorite vegetable? Now I'm able to have so much more variety where it's like my taste buds have grown. I didn't always like avocados, but I learned to like them. And I learned to process and eat these things. So to me, it's just one of those things that I'm trying to let people be aware of. As much as we fighting on many levels, as much as we fought for so long, our maintenance and our sustainability, our sustenance, what we take in, our fuel, and how we use that fuel makes a big difference. So, Alex, being the guru that you are, the expert that you are, like, take people through the process of what this maintenance means to you.
It's really about, again, listening to self, defining defining what it means to rest when I need to, um, how my nutrition supports my movement, um, and optimizes my rest, and how my recovery supports my rest and allows me to move more. Um, I guess it's so important, like I think for me, that I understand and accept, like, my body's going to fluctuate, but I have the opportunity to build skills so my mind fluctuates less. Um, and if my mind fluctuates less, um, my mental state fluctuates less, then I can better transition from one, stressful situation to a different stressful situation, and the varied intensities. I think it's to me it's so important that the well, there's a lot of things that are important, but the idea and the fact that the Black experience in America is varied, even though it has they have commonalities, uh, but varied lifestyles that you can live. Uh, I guess as many people as there are, that 13% of Americans are that are Black have different experiences from each other, and because of that, we are different and the same. And like finding ways to pour back into myself, whether it's exercise or resting, uh, or my nutrition, like doing the things that optimize my ability to do what I love. Um, I eat for energy, um, because they measure it in a unit of energy called calories. That's what it is. Um, and so I try to think of my food that way, and the ability to work, the ability to have long days, the ability to wake up and not be tired, um, and then setting aside time or allocating time in my day to again reinvest, you know, into themselves, and also to find ways to look after the people that they support. Um, if you don't reinvest in yourself, it's really difficult, I think, to be there for other people. Um, and when you're a Black person in America, you're usually not doing it by yourself, um, especially if you're wise enough to see that um, they like to tear down Black bodies when they're by themselves. And we see in America that they also like witnesses. Um, and we need to, the news and the media needs to stop um, glorifying or sensationalizing uh, the death and the massacre and the brutalization of Black bodies. But also, we need to sensationalize what it means to be healthy. I think teaching people to wear a mask and distance themselves from each other, or face covering. I'll say that a face covering to protect them from catching a virus is not teaching them to be healthy. It's teaching them to fear. Um, it's like, okay, so if I get tested right now, I can still get infected in 5 minutes. And so if I don't get my results back for 6 days, um, or 7 days or 3 days, it's not really helping me, to get my results back if I get, you know, if I get exposed, 15 minutes after getting tested. Then if I get a vaccine, it's supposed to produce antibodies. But having antibodies doesn't prevent me from contracting the virus anyway. Um, Matter of fact, if I had the virus and I recovered from my symptoms and I produce antibodies, I could still get infected again. Um, Meanwhile, the whole time I could just practice um, being more clean, being more organized, being more hygienic, and with the idea that I can prevent the transmission, right? I can prevent the inheritance, the social inheritance of, a virus by proper nutrition, by proper rest to boost my immune system, by giving it an opportunity to recover and repair itself like it's meant to do, and then fueling it with nutrients that help it do exactly what it's designed to do. It's like if I'm eating foods that don't produce a better energy source for my body won't run well. Um, so like I really want my body to run well. I really want to not be in pain. I really want to not be nauseous or or fatigued. Like even however like whatever demands I put on my body, I want it to to perform and show up well for me. Um, and so like acknowledging those things that not just bring me joy, in the midst of hate, around me and fear mongering around me. Um, Not just things that bring me joy, but also things that serve me well and rejuvenate me, um, that allow me to function better because I know that I have some knowledge, have some knowledge of what my body needs. Um, but I think learning that is a journey for people, and it's important to find ways to progress.
I mean, starting off, like, was it? Could you recall a time prior, or if there even was a prior time, to when you were like, you know what, my go-to is McDonald's, and everything else comes second, right? Like, was
It
there?
wasn't it wasn't McDonald's. It wasn't McDonald's. Um, I stopped eating chips in middle school. Like I stopped like eating or drinking soda in middle school. Like
Why would you?
um
Why would you do
because I got to do that experiment where you put a nail or in a Coke bottle or in a bowl of Coke or whatever. We did a few different things. I think we did a nail, we did a penny, and we did like a piece of steak, and we left it in a bottle, empty in a bowl of Coca Cola. Um, each one had its own container. The nail and the penny didn't need the bowl, just the meat did. But just seeing what it did to my body, um, well, what it could do to like um, to organic material, as they say in the sci-fi world, um, and then seeing what it does to inorganic material. Uh, my idea was, I don't want this stuff in my body. And then, later on, having the choice to say, well, maybe this knocks a few months off my life. um, or maybe it knocks, a few good hours of production having sugar in my body, um, that throws my body off chemically.
I mean, imagine the fact that you were in middle school that you had the opportunity to experience that, and how many people don't. 'Cause for me, right, like I didn't have that. Like that that experiment, like at my middle school, we didn't get to do that. I think we did it, and I might have missed it, but the thing is like for me, right? Like middle school, I remember that's when you could still like, okay, San Francisco has healthy eating practices in the Unified School District, and at the time when I was growing up, we didn't have that. We had this was right before we went from having soda to having fruit juice. We were that class, right? So I remember going to the beanery and being able to get a Sprite, right? I remember that we had milk in a bag. I remember like you would be able to get chicken nuggets, or that one time a year you get fried chicken, but you get pizza like every Friday. The thing is, at that time, right? Like I remember scraping together whatever I could, whatever little allowance I could get, whatever little money I could get. I'm going to that beanery, and I'm gonna get me a taco pocket. I'm gonna give me a blue bag of Doritos. Now y'all call them Cool Ranch or Cooler Ranch. I call them blue bag of Doritos, and a chocolate chip cookie and a Sprite. Now the thing is, me not being aware at the time of what I was consuming, I was just enjoying. I was in love, right? Now as time progressed and things got hard, it was like, okay, I'm gonna be in this lunch line getting this free lunch. I ain't gonna be eating that stuff no more. So by the time they took out Sprite, it wasn't like I missed it to the point that I need to go out my way. Cause at that point in my life, I'm like, yo, free lunch is fueling me and getting me by. So I'm not gonna be picky. Right. I was like, I'm gonna eat this food, right? But when it came time to tear it up at Jack in the Box, Carl's Jr., or any other major chain, oh, I was definitely going in, right? Like, and the thing was is that it was I continued to do so, right? I knew how bad it was. I seen Supersize Me. I understood, right? And the way we would rationalize it is, well, we don't eat like this every day, right? We don't eat like this every day, so we could eat this, right? But what if it's every week? What if it's twice a week, right? Then you start to realize that, like, when I got around, I believe I was like 23, 24. I went to the doctors, and I was out of shape. I was always active in some physical capacity, but I was out of shape at this point. And they were like, we noticed that you have high sugar levels in your blood, and your blood pressure is kind of high. And immediately I thought about my mom and how she had to give herself a shot every day, right? Had to give herself a shot of insulin. And she always told me, well, when I got diabetes, you was in my womb, so you always gonna be most likely to get it. And I was like, you know what? Not today. You're not gonna get me today. And so I made the diligent choice to be like, I need to step it up with how I eat, right? I used to come to the studio with a bag, like you could ask Figo. I used to come with a bag of lettuce, carrots, bananas, oranges, and I used to just eat on that. That was my fuel source because McDonald's was right across the street.
I heard about that.
So, but to me, that's what it was. It was like, I'm gonna commit myself to this. I'm gonna make this right, right? If I'm gonna go eat, I'm gonna go get a salad, or I'm gonna get something that at least has a overwhelming portion of vegetables compared to, you know, anything else I eat. Like I remember when I started working at a different place, I used to go to the little you know, the little produce stand, and I used to go get some fruit, a bag of baby spinach, and I used to eat baby carrots, baby spinach, almonds, Greek yogurt, and some fruit as my lunch. That was my lunch. And the kids used to be like, ew, what are you eating? And people be like, you like a rabbit. And I'm like, after a while, the kids be like, can I get some spinach? Can I get some carrots? Right? Because they identify me as somebody who works in the community and is there to be there for them. Right? And as much as they were like, ew, that's disgusting, the little bit of influence I had made them curious to be like, if he eats this every day, could it be that bad? Before I knew it, I had kids who then were like, can I have some? To then, some was like, it wasn't for them. But a lot of them were like, do you got any more? Do you got some today? And then it starts to change their relationship to food because now they're being exposed to it. They see someone who's modeling the behavior of what it means to eat healthy. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy, right? Like, I ain't gonna lie, I had my times when I was like, I gotta get this donut. I gotta go to Krispy Kreme. I gotta go get this dozen for the one time. and take
Oh
dozens
no.
dead. But more times than enough, I was like, you know what? I need to go to the farmer's market and I need to go get some fresh fruit and some fresh vegetables. I need to go get, this chicken that's lean and I'm gonna bake it, or I'm gonna find a way to not put a bunch of oil on it, because that's how I grew up. My father was Mr. Skillet. We gonna put in a frying pan and put some margarine on it and we gonna fry this thing. And it's like, oh no, 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 not me. Now when you telling me my blood pressure high, now when you telling me the sugar's high, got to go. I gotta find a new way. So my relationship definitely changed when I was like, 22, 23, and I got them, hey, have you decided that this is what you want to continue to do? So, for you being in middle school, that definitely, it shows the power in education. It shows the power in having that experience, because I mean, I could imagine for myself, yeah, seeing some meat get towed up by some Coca-Cola might have been the thing I needed to be like, yo, you already got family members who you losing. So what else you got to lose? Not my life.
I mean, you the lack of maintenance can have you losing everything. Um, the lack of maintenance will keep you from peace. Um, the lack of maintenance will keep you from being engaged with issues that could use your support, because you're burning the candle at both ends. Um, when you're just running yourself ragged, and then you let people down that you don't know, necessarily, but they are expecting, you know, information, or exchange, and when you don't leave anything left to exchange, it makes it harder on everyone else.
No, that's real. I mean, and then, like, to bring it back all around, is that, the concept of where we come from to where we going, right? Like, where we come from is they gave us scraps, so we learned how to make the most exquisite meals out of them. But at the same time, they were still scraps, right? We found ways to make food that could last long, which is why, when it comes to fried food, it's delicious, but there's also a way to keep food like preserved for a period of time, right? Putting food in salt is a way to keep it preserved. Now, is it sustainable in today's society and how things is? No, but you have to be very mindful that, like, this is where we come from, and as much as we may love it, we have to be careful with our balance with it, because, right, they sell it to us in a variety of ways, but it's sold to us so it could keep us in a certain place. And if we really want to elevate, right, we have to be very mindful of what is our relationship and engagement to not only our history, but how we maintain and sustain that moving into the future. So, next week will be episode 10. And I want to highlight that there's going to be some changes, some significant changes. Before we recorded this episode, we were testing out some of those changes, and we have some more tests to do. But
We definitely have more tests to do.
exactly, by the time we get to episode 10, you will have noticed the significant change in how we deliver this. So, just so everybody's clear, this is episode 9 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. Figo and June are off in other universes and galaxies fighting battles that are much needed, and they are doing it. But you are now with Cineo, Alex, and we are gonna leave you with what we do at this time, as always, is you know kind of the theme song for the heroes as they run through the tunnel going into the light, and the capes flapping in the background.
shout out to my brothers Martu and Lamar. Happy birthday, ones.